Please bear with me on this one. I'm sick and I have the flu. People are stopping in front of my house. Keep driving, don't do that. That's awkward. Go away. Today I'm going to talk about all my reading plans for June. To be perfectly transparent, getting sick has derailed my reading exponentially. I have not read barely anything in like 5 days. It's been a struggle. I'm either on the couch shivering, or I'm feeling ill, or I'm sleeping, or I'm taking care of my kid who's also sick. Luckily, he was good enough to go to school today, so we're struggling through filming a video. So hopefully it's not as bad as I feel like it's gonna be. Also, I'm sorry about my voice. I think I sound weird and I can't really control that right now, so. The first book I'm going to talk about is a book that I'm currently reading, which I'm carrying over from my May TBR. Surprisingly, this is the only book on my May TBR I haven't finished. I don't know how I managed that with everything that happened last month. It was hectic. I had a lot go wrong and then I got sick. So I'm proud of myself that I managed to get this far. That book is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This book takes place in Madrid. I believe it's the 1800s. I'm not sure exactly on the time period, but I think it's the 1800s. We follow a girl named Lucia who has a magic that is small but useful. She can, fix burnt bread. She can repair a shattered cup. She can fix a tear in clothing. Her magic is not large and extravagant, but it is useful to her in her job as a scullery maid, a scullion, I believe she's called. So Lucia's mistress of the house that she works for basically finds out that Lucia can do these small magics one day, and she confronts her about it and then makes Lucia do magic to better the family's standing in society. She uses Lucia to basically gain favor with other nobility that are higher up than her, and I believe the main plot of this is that all of the attention ends up going higher up, and Lucia finds herself entwined in noble politics and ends up gaining the attention of the King of Spain, who wants to use her small magic in some way, shape, or form to thwart the Queen of England. And I don't know how that all comes together. I'm only 40 pages in, so it's just kicking off the plot. We haven't spent a lot of time with the characters yet, and I don't really know where the story is going to go from here. However, I love the writing. The vibes are really good, and Leigh Bardugo has a way of making me care about characters right off the bat. I'm not super invested, I'm not going to die for this character yet, but 40 pages in and I'm already on Lucia's side. I already am rooting for her. I think that she has had a really unfortunate life, and I'm excited to see where her story takes her. The next book I'm going to talk about is my book club's pick, The Reading Realm, over on Fable, which I'll link below if you want to join. So every month I pull suggestions from a list and add them into a wheel spinner, and I spin until I get 4 choices, and then from those 4 choices I post a poll in Fable for everyone to vote on. And the winner this month was Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. I have already read this. I started it physically and then finished on audio because I heard the audiobook narrator was great, and he was. I gave this 3.5 stars when I first read it. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I was in the right headspace for it because I had just read The Name of the Wind, and ironically they are very similar. Not in a bad way. I think it definitely took inspiration from that, but made it its own also. I might reread this with my book club. I might not, because it is so big and I'm just getting over being sick and I'm still a little bit ill, so I don't know if I'll have the capacity to throw in an extra giant book on my TBR that I've already read. But if you want to join us on Fable, I will discuss it in the book club regardless if I reread it or not, because I have already read it and I can comment and talk back and discuss everyone's thoughts with them. So please join us down below if you're interested in reading this. Also, I will say the art in here is stunning. And for those of you who don't know, Empire of the Vampire follows a young man named Gabriel who discovers something about himself that leads him to join this vampire hunting society. I can't remember what they're called at the moment, but essentially we follow Gabriel's life and him hunting vampires, and it's kind of an interview format where we know that Gabriel is captured because he's talking to his captor here at the beginning of the book, and the entire book is a flashback of his life and basically leading up to how he got to where he is at the beginning of the book, which we know is him being captured. I feel like I explained that terribly, but it's a very popular book, so I'm sure you know what it's about. Hopefully that's good enough, because my brain is not functioning right now. The next book I'm going to talk about is my Buzzword Readathon Challenge book, and the prompt for June is repeating words. So I've chosen to read Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death. I'm not really sure what Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death is about. I do know that it's a book about life and death. I know that it's weird, as per Kayla from Books and Lala. She said so herself, that it is a weird book, but it's very beautiful and very poignant. And I have extremely different tastes from Kayla. I'm a super fantasy girly, and she is not. She reads a lot of mystery and thrillers. I do not, even though I love them, I don't read them as often. But something about Kayla, I trust her tastes and I trust her recommendations exponentially. I don't know why. She could recommend me something that I would never read otherwise, and I would probably read it. So this one's for you, Kayla. Since it is June, I do also want to read some queer books, but one book that I do know for a fact is queer is The Solstice Court by Jade Juniper. I am going to reread this in June. ARCs are going out June 1st for street team members who get early ARC access, and then ARCs will also go out to other ARC team members on June 21st. So if you're interested in getting an ARC on June 21st, I will link Jade's channel down below. You can also find her on Instagram and Threads and Twitter and Storygraph and Goodreads, etc. The Solstice Court is about a young girl named Kezura who is just a gem. She is an adventurer at heart, I think, and she just wants to explore and see everything that the world has to offer, and she wants to make people happy in her own way, but she has a lot of responsibility placed on her that she can't fulfill for reasons I will not say because it's a little spoilery. But the Solstice Court is very cozy, but it also has a little action. There's also a lot of court politics, which I found so interesting. There are rulers of different kingdoms that used to be friends, and now they're all torn and fighting and on separate sides of this war that is taking place in this, in this world. And we get to see through their eyes what they think is right, and we also get to see through Kezura's eyes her take on all of this. We also get to see her struggle with finding herself. We get to see her relationships blossom, her friendships grow stronger and stronger. We get to see her familial relationships. She has some love in her family. She has some strife in her family. And I think most of all, the Solstice Court is a story about being yourself and being yourself unapologetically, specifically. And I love it so much. I was really lucky enough to beta read for Jade, and I can't wait to reread the arc and see what has changed and what has remained the same. I do know that she made some changes from when I read it last, but I know that it's going to be even better, and I can't wait to read it. So I'll have Jade linked down below. I'll have the Goodreads for the Solstice Court linked down below if you're interested, and I'll also put the Amazon pre-order link in the description as well. Did you hear my voice crack? Another queer book that I hope to get to this month is Nona the Ninth by Tanzim Muir. Nona is the third book in a series, so to not spoil, I will just tell you what Gideon the Ninth is about, which is the first book. Gideon the Ninth is, at surface level, a murder mystery in space, but underneath the surface, Gideon the Ninth is about finding yourself, which is odd because I just said the same thing about the Solstice Court. But seriously, Gideon the Ninth is truly about finding yourself and finding your place in the world, using the strengths that you were given to your advantage and not comparing yourself to others. But it is definitely a murder mystery in space with necromancy and queerness and backstabbing and sacrifice and spookiness. It is a little scary, and honestly, I love Gideon so much, and I love Harrow so much. Harrow is book 2, which was one of the wildest reading experiences I've ever had. If you want to read a book and not have a single idea what the fuck is going on until literally the last chapter, but then find out that even though you were lost the entire way and questioning your existence, once you read the last chapter, you were like, damn, that's the best book I've ever read. Then read this series because it will blow you away. But seriously, book 2 requires a lot of brain power, so make sure you go into it when you are prepared and ready. And I'm really hoping Nona doesn't require a lot of brain power because I'm still getting over the flu, but I'm really excited for this one. I'm nervous for this one because I know a little bit about it already. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil if you haven't read the rest of the series, but lesbian necromancers in space, okay? That's all you need to know. Lesbian Necromancers in Space. So those are the books that I'm really going to try to focus on the most this month. I do have a couple of other books that I want to get to, but it all depends on how much I'm able to read and how much I'm able to get through. I do have a couple of video ideas that have specific books involved that I will keep secret until those come out. And I also would like to try to get to The Good Son by Frida McFadden. I've read one other Frida book and I enjoyed it a lot. As far as thrillers go, like it really packed a punch, and the ending surprised me, which is very hard to do in a thriller book. So I'm so interested to read more from Frida. I think The Good Son is going to be a good option for me. It does remind me a little bit of this old Lifetime movie, which was called The Perfect Son, and it had Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin in it, and they were both like 10 or 12 or something. Like they were super young. And The Good Son, the cover of it and the title of it just remind me so much of that movie, and I loved that movie when I was younger. So I hope I love this book just as much. I would also really like to start sometime by the end of the month The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. I have already read the entire Throne of Glass series, but I am buddy reading them with my friend Danny, who I also buddy read ACOTAR with and Crescent City with. I've been telling Danny for months that we'll start this soon, and then I keep not starting it, so I'm so sorry, Danny. That's entirely my fault. Everyone knows what Throne of Glass is about. I'm not gonna explain it. Throne of Glass, The Assassin's Blade. A lot of people say not to start with The Assassin's Blade. I don't care. I'm making Danny start with The Assassin's Blade. You know why? Because if you read this and then you read you know what about you know who after, I think it hits harder, because that's how I read it my first time through, and I sobbed for an hour. So don't come for me, and too bad we're reading this one first. Danny, I promise we'll start this soon. By the end of the month, for sure, we'll start it. I promise. Those are all of the books that I'm gonna try to get to in June. I have no idea if I will be successful. I'm surprised at how successful I was with my May TBR, even though I'm still including one book from May and June. I've at least started it, you know? Round of applause, because the last week I've barely read anything, so this is an accomplishment for me. Let me know if you've read any of these books down in the comments, if you liked them, if you didn't like them. Also, let me know what you're planning to read in June. Are you gonna read queer books? Are you just gonna read what you normally read? I find that I read queer books all year round at all times. They're just always a part of my TBR, so I don't feel the need to make my TBR 100% queer, because I always read queer books. So yeah. If you made it to the end of the video, leave a sword emoji down in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one. That was lame. I'm so sorry. Bye.